fabulous show.
Alaska.
I Heartbeat Alaska.
It's Heartbeat. Alaska.
Pull up a chair and enjoy the show.
You hear it from Sitka to Barrow. Gather around for Jeannie's show. It's the Aleut, the Indian and the Eskimo. It's the Aleut, the Indian and the Eskimo.
Welcome one, welcome all.
Hello everyone and welcome to Heartbeat Alaska. Native news and Native information. I'm Jeannie Green. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we visit the Athabaskan village of Chitina, Alaska, a village whose land claims still remain unsettled. I'll be back with Chitina right after this.
Hi, my name is Keaton Shepard, and I live in Chitina, Alaska, and I love Heartbeat Alaska.
Heartbeat Alaska would like to thank the following sponsors for making our show possible. Brown's Electric. Thank you, Brown's Electric, for your generous support. Heartbeat Alaska is also brought to you by Frontier Flying Service. Thank you, Frontier, for getting Heartbeat Alaska airborne.
Heartbeat Alaska is also brought to you by Comtech Business Systems Incorporated and by the Maniloc Association, providing health and social services to residents of Northwest Alaska for over 30 years. Heartbeat Alaska is also brought to you by Ed's Kasilov Seafoods.
Land ownership, land trespassing, has always been a major issue for Native and non-Native alike, and today we travel north to the Athabaskan village of Chitina.
Our people have relied on this fishery for thousands of years.
There have been people fishing here at Chitina for well over 100 years, not just Native peoples.
We had our gates crashed. I had guns pulled on me.
We've had a couple of kids almost killed. One was knocked off his bike and his bike was thrown in the ditch.
As with any group, there's always a few that do things that make the rest look bad.
Quite a few other Native elders had camps. Camps got shot up, their fish wheels cut loose, pretty much just ran off the property.
For thousands of years, the Ahtna people lived in the broad valley of the Copper River. The fish, animals, and plants in this valley provided everything they needed. The natives here made use of the copper they found in the Wrangell Mountains. By the early 1900s, word of the huge copper deposits in the area was out, and a railroad was going in. By 1938, over $100 million worth of ore had been extracted. The mine and the railroad were both abandoned when the ore was gone. The village of Chitina went from a bustling town full of miners to a quiet backwater filled with ghosts. In 1959, the federal government quietly transferred the railroad right-of-way to the state to be used as a future highway.
I don't know, like I said, what year the railroad came, but that's when it became a road. So that's why I think the ancestors have the right-of-way, because they were here way before the railroad.
Could you see that real well, that cabin over there?
Meet Billy and Millie Buck. Like many Ahtna people, they have a fish camp on the Copper River near Chitina. Camps like this used to be more common around Chitina, but just about the time the old railroad became a highway, dipnet fishing was beginning to become popular. The same Copper River salmon that fed the Ahtna people for millennia was now becoming famous. Unfortunately, so were some of the best fishing spots.
When Kitty Johns and quite a few other native elders had camps down throughout O'Brien and Healy and Escalita camp there. We had different fish wheels up and down that river. Different elder families had spots there. And back in the late 60s, their camps got shot up. Their fish wheels cut loose. Pretty much just ran off the property. And that's when the fisheries all came in and started.
Though they were catching the same fish, these new fishermen were very different from the Ahtna people.
Our people have relied on this fishery, and it's been a mainstay of our food for thousands of years. I don't think they rely on it as much as we do. I'm not saying that they don't use it and that it's not important to them. It is, but it doesn't have the same customary traditions as the Ahtna people.
The trespassers make us very angry because they dirty our lands. There's tissue paper all over the place. There's guns being drawn. There's fish being taken and guts are left on the bank to rot and smell. When we cut our fish, we even use the backbone. It's our survival. It feeds our kids. It feeds our families. It provides for our animals, because we don't waste nothing.
In 1971, the Alaska Native Land Claims Settlement Act gave the Ahtna people title to thousands of acres along the Copper River, including those great fishing spots. End of story, right? Wrong. The dipnetters were determined to find a way to the river, and they did. Remember that old railroad bed that was eventually going to be a highway? Well, it's a dirt road now, but since it was designated as a highway, it's technically 300 feet wide. This area is called the right-of-way. The idea is to leave room for possible expansion of the road for later. As the road, now called O'Brien Creek Road, snakes its way south from town along the river, that 300-foot right-of-way sometimes goes right to the river. And there's one more exception to the land claims of the Ahtna and Chitina Native Corporations. In Alaska, most waterways big enough for a boat are called navigable and are open to the public. The area open to the public includes everything below the mean high water mark. To put it simply, the beaches and gravel bars alongside the river are also open to the public. Welcome to O'Brien Creek, one of the most popular spots for dipnetters on the Copper River. Here, the road opens onto this gravel bar, so dipnetters can drive directly from the right-of-way to the riverbed.
Currently, we're standing right in the center of the road that brings you from Chitina down to O'Brien Creek and further on down to Haley Creek and Escalita Creek. This is the state of Alaska's right-of-way claim. They say they have 300 feet. 150 feet from each side of the center of this road. They have gone through with the surveyor and surveyed the center line of the road and have put it on a map. They've also taken and surveyed the edge of the Copper River, and that's meandering the river, to establish where the high water mark is on that river. And anything uplands of that high water mark is considered private property up to the point of the right-of-way. That's 150 feet from the center line where we're standing currently. An average person can just estimate distance. The average footstep for a human being of an average height, about 5 foot 10 inches tall or so, the average footstep is about 3 feet long. So just taking and estimating 150 feet being approximately 50 steps. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take from this point, pace off 50 steps, pardon me, and go a couple extra steps and show you where the line is outside of the right-of-way. 1.
Joe Hart spent years working for the Chitina and Ahtna tribes. He sees a big problem these dipnetters seem to be unaware of.
49, 50. This is approximately 150 feet from that point where we started at. And if we were to take just an extra step or two just to make sure we're over that line, we are currently standing on private property. This is Chitina Native Corporation land, and the same thing can be done at Escalita Creek and at Haley Creek. All of these people in all of these vehicles behind us are trespassing at this point. They do not have the private property owner's permission to be here.
So who cares if a few people park their cars here to go fishing?
Oh, yeah.
The people who call Chitina home care.
We love to see the fishermen, we love to see the tourists, but you have to watch out for people who are driving down from down from Fairbanks to Chitina after working all day, and they're tired, and then they get here and usually party some and dip for their fish, and when they get their limit, or they get their fill of their beer, then they hop in their trucks and drive back up. And sometimes they're pulling campers. A lot of time they're pulling boats, and they're exhausted, and they're very dangerous, and they almost never recognize our signs. We've had a couple of kids almost killed. One was knocked off his bike, and his bike was thrown in the ditch. And if they'd recognize and respect the law and go 30 miles an hour or slower, then it would be better.
The location with the fishermen is they all set up camps down there with campfires, and we have nothing but dry woods that for miles, and all the wind blows in our direction towards Chitina, which is a bad scenario. If there's ever a fire that gets out of hand on that side, it's going to blow right through here. That's what we're afraid of. Every year there's more and more coming. They're bringing more and more four-wheelers, more and more boats, but they're leaving more and more trash behind.
So why not just post no trespassing signs?
Everybody says, we don't see no signs. And if you look around, you'll see the signs posted all over on the trees. And they use that for a campground. And that's trespassing on private property there. Yeah, they take off the signs, and that way they can say they've never seen them before.
Dan Stevens lives here in Chitina. You might say he and his little Subaru are on the front lines of the fight to protect native lands. We went with him to meet some of the people who come here every year to dip net for Copper River salmon.
We're at O'Brien Creek. Right now we're on high mean water, which means the state owns this part according to them. Up over in this area down here is where the old Copper River Railroad came across here. But this is our access road that goes down. Oh, man, you might as well go to the Sears Mall and look for a place to park if you get here like on 4th of July or a good weekend or something. You'll be trying to get into a shopping mall, parking spots.
We see people camped in the state's right-of-way, right up against the edge of Chitina land. Things look pretty tame while we're there, and we meet a man who simply calls himself Ace.
Okay, bottom line, we just have a trailer that we got set up to where we can move it quickly with the chutes that go down in the water, where they can stand up and clean their fish. They don't have to bend over in the creek. That way it's not. There's been people falling in the river here and drown trying to clean their fish.
Ace brings his fish cleaning trailer here every year. It's parked in an area Chitina Native Corporation says is theirs. Still, Ace sees himself as part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Before, every time somebody'd make a fling or just have to leave guts on the rocks or something like that, and the birds would be fighting over it, dragging it all over the place. Well, this would be solid fish heads and fish guts. A lot of times it's mainly from the birds that pick them up and do it, but since we're down here, I don't like the smell of it myself, so yeah, we go around in the morning or in the evening when we're not busy or something like that. What stuff they do drag up now, which is a lot less than it used to be, because the last 2 years in a row there hadn't been a bear problem down here either, and that was another concern. Oh, I don't make a lot of money at all. I don't make hardly anything. But I try to help out a couple of disabled vets in the past besides myself, and then, like I said, this year I've got one homeless gentleman that did not want to go on welfare or anything like that. He'd rather come down here and maybe clean some fish for some people for tips or something. No, you're not going to get rich quick down here doing the fish cleaning, that's for sure.
This is Mark Ham. He does make money down here. He runs a charter boat service, essentially sort of a water taxi that brings dip netters to some of the best fishing spots around.
Well, for the past 20 years, this will be the 21st year, I've had a charter business down here, operated on the Copper River. I basically take state residents who qualify to go dip netting in the personal use fishery here out and drop them off along the bank, and they catch their fish and flag them down when they're ready and come back. Well, I believe that there is no strip of land there that is actually above the high water mark where people have access on DNR land. From the right-of-way, the old Copper River Northwestern Railway, down here to the Copper River at O'Brien Creek. And the state of Alaska, through our legislature, also believes that there is no trespass that happens within that section. That's why they did away with the $25 fees. As with any group, there's always a few that do things that make the rest look bad, whether it's shooting signs on the highway, leaving garbage, doing inappropriate activities. I do know in the 20 years that I've been here in Chitina that a lot of things happen from the local peoples. The dip netters, for the most part, the majority of them, really respect this resource, and they use these fish to feed their families. And they pack their garbage out. They're very respectful of the property around, and you know, they're willing to do what they need to do. And like I said, there's always a few that don't do that, but you're going to find that anywhere.
Like most of the dip netters we met, Mark wants this resource and the lands around here to be respected. Like the folks in Chitina, he'd like to find a way for dip netters and local subsistence users to get along.
There are legitimate concerns on both sides, but I believe that there are ways to work those concerns out, and putting roadblocks up or threatening people is just not an appropriate manner by which to do those things.
But roadblocks are just what the people of Chitina are about to resort to. So what would happen if the Chitina Native Corporation simply blocked off their property at O'Brien Creek? When Heartbeat Alaska returns, we'll find out.
Now's your chance to get that home improvement project you've been wanting to start finished. Because at Northern Interiors, we're having a store-wide sale. Choose from our beautiful selection of kitchen cabinetry and countertops from 10 to 50% off, and get professional installation completely free of charge. Durable laminate flooring is on sale now for only $1.79 per square foot. Let us install your favorite brand name carpeting and get top quality 8-pound padding for free. Northern Interiors, kitchens, floors, and a whole lot more.
For years, a portion of O'Brien Creek Road crossed Chitina land, and after many years of watching trespassers go by, the villagers decided to do something about it. Back in 1985 and 86, the Chitina Native Corporation did block O'Brien Creek Road. They put up a gate and charged the public $15 a person or $25 per family to cross their land. David Finnesand recalls working at the gate.
A lot of people didn't agree with that. We had our gates crashed. I had guns pulled on me. It was an intimidating situation where neither one of us won. I mean, there wasn't managed right. That's why the fee came into place later on down the road. DOT came in, punched the road in a few years later and abolished that fee, and then we worked on a settlement.
That's right. The state received so many complaints about the gate and the fee, they actually realigned O'Brien Creek Road so it no longer crossed any native lands. At that point, the village of Chitina worked out a deal with the state.
The fee for the fishermen was for the trash collection, for the outhouses, and for the cleanup that we do down there.
From 1991 to 2003, fishermen had to pay $10 to $25 for a permit to fish near Chitina. The state gave most of the money to Ahtna Incorporated and the Chitina Native Corporation as compensation for the trespass. Some of the money also went to the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. Chitina Native Corporation used the money to place dumpsters and outhouses on O'Brien Creek Road. They also were able to hire someone from the village to clean up. For many years, it was Dan Stevens.
And in the early 90s, I was doing the campgrounds, and this is where they'd have the dumpsters. And the dumpsters would be piled with garbage because we couldn't get service down here quick enough to empty all the garbage. No, it wasn't really a great situation, but it was better because we were able to pay someone to go up and down the street here and pick up the garbage that the people had just left on the sides of the roads.
In 2003, the state paid $100,000 to resurvey the O'Brien Creek Road's right-of-way, hoping to settle the dispute. And in 2004, they stopped collecting the fee from fishermen, and instead, the state took over the trash pickup and outhouses. It took them until late June to get them in place. So now Chitina is receiving no compensation for trespass, yet, as we saw, there are people trespassing. So what choices does Chitina have?
Well, if there's a trespass issue and we call the troopers, there's not a lot they can do for it. They want to know how serious the incident is, whether it's a life-threatening incident or not. You know, like I said, I've had guns pulled on me. We've reported that. I never seen a trooper that day, so I couldn't tell you. Apparently he didn't shoot me, so it wasn't a serious matter.
Well, we've gone through all of the processes that we've seen in front of us, testified to the legislature, both House and Senate. We've talked to the Dipnet Association. We've gone to the Board of Fish. We've asked them for assistance on all of this. We've talked to the Fish and Game. We've talked to the Commissioner of DOT. We've talked to the Commissioner of Fish and Game. And everyone that's involved, we've talked to them on several occasions. When we put up the barricade and we blocked public access by vehicle down here and by foot, they're going to start a floodgate of complaints over why can't I go down to O'Brien Creek and do the dip netting that I'm used to? Why is that? And then they're going to have to be educated.
Another shot of O'Brien Creek. Private property, no trespassing. Posted by CNC.
Just in time for the July 4th weekend, Chitina did put up barricades around their land, blocking off most of the O'Brien Creek area. These chunks of concrete did greatly reduce trespassing. As for Mark, he lost around half of his summer business.
I would just like to say that it's unfortunate that Alaskans have to argue and squabble over a resource that belongs to all Alaskans. And most Alaskans are good people. They like to work with other people. We have put out our hand before in the past, and we do now, to try and sit down and talk to bridge this gap without a lot of threats or innuendos or anything like that, to see if there is some way we can rectify the situation. Unfortunately, I believe there's an unwillingness to do that on the part of the corporations.
Still, the dipnetters want to find a solution that is good for everyone.
And I don't think there'd be anybody around down here anywhere that would complain about paying the fee to set up a camp. And that I think the only thing that I've heard from some people and personal opinions is they would rather it not be a handout. They would rather it be a work together type thing.
Remember Dan Stevens and his trusty Subaru? He worked very hard to create this. When the Chitina Native Corporation decided to open an RV park, Dan Stevens got out his tools and went to work.
Our water for now.
And these are the first customers. Dan is hoping that this will relieve some of the crowding around O'Brien Creek and other areas. But it's also much more. This little patch of land could mark a shift in the way Chitina deals with the influx of thousands of fishermen each summer. Folks around here will watch this place carefully to see if the dipnet fishery could be a boost to Chitina's economy instead of a strain. This winter, the village of Chitina, the Dipnetters Association, and the state of Alaska are going to sit down at the same table, and it'll be the first time that all three have sat down at the same table to debate this problem, and we certainly hope they find a solution. See ya.